Hi, morning, 冠哥.
Jinliu, hi, happy Friday. How are
Friday. You? Yeah, and actually I have a gift for you because I heard you have come back for a whole year, right?
Been back exactly 1 year. I landed in Beijing this time last year from Washington.
Wow.
Good timing though.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank
it's due worthy. And I would like to know that how do you feel that how just like changed?
Yeah, I know. Today we're talking about the 14th five-year plan, right?
Mm-hmm.
For me, it's tangible. It's very concrete. For me, I've been back 1 year. There are a lot of changes happening. For example, in the service sector, services are getting better.
Yeah.
For example, back in the day, if you get into a Beijing cab, taxi drivers can be very nosy. You know, they ask you everything like, "Oh, young man, are you married? Like, how much do you make every month?" Things like that. But nowadays, they don't. They're very respectful of your privacy. Why? Because obviously there are more competition. You have Didi, you have Shouqi, you have all those cab hailing, apps.
Yeah.
So competition really drives the service sector. Also, I shop a lot online, and it's very easy for me to change items or to voice my dissatisfaction with them, and they're very efficient in getting the item that I want back to me. Very efficient, lots of competition. So yeah, for me, this is one of the biggest changes. Of course, you have more blue sky days.
Yeah, the climate transparent.
Lots of changes in the past year since I'm back, and even more changes in the past 5 years. And we'll talk about that.
Wow, I'm looking forward to it.
All right. Happy Friday again, Jinliu. Good to see you.
See you later.
Hello and a warm welcome to Headline Buster, brought to you by The Point. I'm Wang Guan, sitting in for Liu Xin. In this series, I dissect stories that are making headlines around the world and talk to my guests to compensate for the missing pieces of the puzzle. So join us in real time by sending us your comments or questions via the CGTN webpage on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, or Weibo. If you're watching this live on the CGTN app, email us at thepointwithalex@cgtn.com. Let us know what you think. We start our live streaming every Friday at 11 a.m. Beijing time, so get in touch and we just might read out your questions. Before we start, let's look at some social media comments we got on the topic we're talking about today, the 14th five-year plan. Now, YouTube user JVP said this: "I think China in particular has come to realize the importance of self-sufficiency and diversification of sourcing critical supplies. The good thing is they're in the position to continually improve this drive due to a strong and just government as well as a sensible, hardworking, and intelligent population. I really look forward to seeing how China improves in the next 5 to 10 years. Well, thank you very much for your compliments. YouTube user WC said this: "China has 5, 10, 20, 25, and 50-year plans that they succeed in reaching, while in the West they have 5-year-old plans that are never reached or get reversed by the end of their term by a different government in power." Well, now that you think about it, if not all changes, not all reversals are bad, if the Biden administration can rejoin the Paris Climate Accord, I mean, that would be a good thing, no? YouTube user Jennifer Sun said this: "The advantage of China's system is that they do not have to answer to short-term demands, and they can move forward on long-term plan for next 5 years, 10 years, etc. And in general, those plans do become reality to some degree. On the other hand, because they are not adjusting quickly to changing conditions, because they generally do not need to, mistake can be made for many years and resulting in issues bigger than normally possible. In the US, every politician has great plans, most of which never become reality, because they're totally unrealistic. Those politicians probably knew they were impossible. For example, cutting the tax for everyone and reduce the deficit at the same time while solving homelessness, build great infrastructure, but they sound good to the voters." Well, regarding the China comment, I mean, I appreciate your comment, but let's not forget there are feedback mechanisms in China as well. Think about all the closed door as well as open press consultations, meetings between the government, party officials, and think tanks, universities. Also, media here in China function differently than those in the West, for sure, but media in China assume a watchdog role nonetheless, especially the social media these days. Now, this week, we are looking at media coverage on China's proposals for the 14th five-year plan, which were revealed last month. Do the media make the key points clear, or are they spinning the facts into something to fear? First, what exactly is China's five-year plan, and why should people care? Well, it is basically a blueprint that maps out China's growth starting in 1953. China has made 13 five-year plans so far. The first one, from 1953 to 1957, helped China transition from an agricultural society to an industrialized economy. Since the sixth five-year plan, the package has aimed to transform a centrally planned economy into more of a market-driven economy. And since the 11th five-year plan, China has placed more emphasis on deciding development directions instead of setting specific targets. Here's what's been achieved since the last five-year plan. In terms of the economy and people's livelihoods, as you can see, by 2019, China met most of the targets. And by 2020, the rest of the goals are likely to be achieved as well. As we all know, the next 5 years will pose significant challenges, not just to China, but to every single nation and individual, as COVID-19 pandemic continues to spread and disrupt life as we know it. Economies around the world are also taking brutal hits, as lockdowns, social distancing measures, and restrictions stifle business and travel. And then there's the trend of trade protectionism, tariffs, which was already fanning the flames of uncertainty before the virus hit. But for China, where should the country focus its resources? What is the smartest way to grow? How should the country respond to factors both within the country and outside? To address these concerns, China's new proposed targets for the 14th five-year plan has some ideas. According to the communiqué released after the fifth plenary session of the 19th CPC, China will strengthen its domestic market, further improve its economy, its economic structure, and fortify its innovation capacity. The proposal also stresses the importance of self-reliance on technology and green technology in particular, and what it is calling double development dynamic, the idea that internal as well as international circulation should complement each other. The next 5 years will be very busy. So why should the world care? Well, for one, given China has been able to largely get its COVID-19 outbreak under control, its economy has started to recover. China reported a 4.9% gross domestic product growth in its third quarter compared to a year ago. That is a huge improvement if you think about the first quarter, which saw a 6.8% decline, and compared to the second quarter, which had a 3.2% increase. Since China is the world's second largest economy, this is also good news for the world. In fact, the IMF last month predicted that China will be the only major economy in the world to show a positive growth rate in 2020. If China's economy can bounce back, it can most probably propel global economic growth and trade until other countries can get back on their feet. The proposals also present some more promising endeavors. Emphasis on innovation will promote new technologies and jobs. In fact, the word innovation was, mentioned 47 times in the proposal. In green technology, it is hoped that it will make a positive impact on climate change and the environment. And the commitment to keep opening up its markets will provide an attractive business climate for foreign investors and entrepreneurs. That is a lot of good news, and yet some media reports refuse to see it that way. Instead, they choose to interpret China's proposals as a threat or draw imaginary conclusions to feed their fears. Let's take a look at some of them. Some actually opinion pieces presented by some global media outlets. First, a Reuters financial commentary piece from November the 2nd reads, China's latest five-year plan girds for battle. The opening paragraph said this, China's latest five-year plan suggests President Xi Jinping is girding for battle. Despite the recent economic rebound from the pandemic, the tone from the ruling CPC's closed-door meetings was notably less cheerful than in 2015. Although details are scarce for now, Beijing is intensifying preparations for geopolitical and corporate arms races. Fear-mongering over facts. We've seen it before, and we'll probably see it again. And here it comes. It's a bit odd to see the technique used to talk about China's economic plan. The headline accuses Beijing of preparing for battle, but then the bulk of the article focuses on how China is elevating the importance of technological self-reliance and pursuing quality over quantity when it comes to GDP growth. It is not really the same thing. It's also important to note that these priorities have emerged because of the reality on the ground. For example, the U.S. have export controls to China's chip-making SMIC Corporation, which would handicap China's semiconductor industry. So Beijing is making tech self-reliance a priority because it has to, not because it is preparing for some kind of quote-unquote corporate arms race. If the U.S. doesn't want to sell its products to China, then China will probably have to do it itself. The piece also hones in one more paragraph from, as it mentions, the 6,200-word message, which says, China will comprehensively strengthen military training and preparation for war. But in the same paragraph, it admits this year's defense budget of China only increased 6.6%, the lowest rate in decades. It is a mixed message here. Even if that amount rises in the next few years, many people would argue that every country has a right to defend itself. It's also worth noting that China still spends a significantly smaller percentage of its GDP, only 1.9% on defense in 2019. The rate is much smaller than that of the US, India, Russia, and Turkey, according to the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute. I mean, no wonder the article says that details to support its saber-rattling headlines are scarce. They are practically non-existent. Our next example is from Nikkei Asian Review. The November 4th opinion piece headline reads, China's 2035 plan raises fears of a greater confrontation with the US. The piece covers the same ideas, that China's new 5-year plan is a direct threat to the US. It says the plan makes clear China's strategy to seize technological hegemony from the US. The friction between them that will likely grow as a result is worrisome. Is that really clear? China's plans to improve its own technological industry do not imply it is necessarily going to seize anything from the US or overpower the US in terms of technological hegemony. But relax, folks. Worst case, it'll probably inject a little competition into the market, which will spur innovation and creativity in important industries, like the green technology industry. The US should be confident enough in its own innovation capabilities not to fret about China's growth. But the article does not stop there. It warns that if China catches up with the US on the economic front, it can look to surpass the US in military capability. Well, that is quite a leap. The first does not necessarily imply the second. It is a logical fallacy, but it is also harmful. People who do not know any better might interpret this kind of argument as rooted in fact, not speculation. Our last example comes from a Bloomberg opinion piece from October 14th that reads, China is loading up a 5-year warning shot to the US. Whatever Beijing targets, competitors outside China will feel the pang. This time, it's 5G and green tech. Once again, those same culprits, 5G and green tech, are depicted here as ready to ruin everything for the rest of the world. And yet again, it is misleading. The article says investors are betting on industrial companies, but China's 14th 5-year plan could bring a lot more stress to a post-COVID-19 economy attempting a recovery. The world should watch carefully as Beijing gets ready to unveil a blueprint focused on high-tech industry, unquote. The overall argument is that China's plan should worry the world because if China grows in certain areas, namely tech and green tech, there will be no more opportunities for the rest of the world. They will all be gone, but that's just not the case. This is zero-sum thinking. China's Foreign Ministry spokesperson Wang Wenbin made it clear too, and I quote, he said, we never seek hegemony or expansion. That's why China has so many friends all over the world. The label of infiltration and threat can never be pinned on China. Actually, China has said time and time again that it has no intention to pursue economic hegemony. It's different developmental focus at different stages, be it GDP growth, manufacturing, or innovation now, has nothing to do with China's geopolitical calculations and a lot to do with ensuring a stable China. And as the world wades deeper and deeper through the chaos of COVID-19 pandemic, a stable China is most probably good for everyone, economically and geopolitically. As the article says, the world should watch carefully as the world's second largest economy unveils its blueprint for growth. What China does matter to the world, but do not watch in fear. Watch because there are opportunities to seize, momentum to harness, and growth to celebrate, for example. With that, we will take a break, and when we come back, we will talk to our guests about what China's new five-year plan is really about. And is it as threatening as some media are making it sound?
我觉得总书记给出了一个非常明确的指向，就是我们要看到机遇，大胆创新和开拓，来化危为机。
今年他特意加上了要面向为人民的健康生活考虑，我觉得这个面向其实是有非常大的战略意义。
我作为文艺工作者，一定要牢记总书记所讲：文化为了人民服务，为了社会服务。
Welcome back, guys, for our discussion on China's 14th five-year plan and more. We're joined by Huang Ping, Executive President from China Institute of Hong Kong, Professor Liu Baocheng from University of International Business and Economics, and last but not least, Professor Daya K. Thusu, Professor of International Communication from Hong Kong Baptist University. Welcome, gentlemen, to all of you. President Huang, let me start with you. We've heard from Western media reports. Lots of folks are worried about the 14th five-year plan. They interpret certain proposals, for example, on 5G and green development, as China's ambition to overpower the West, overtaking Western supremacy in these fields. How do you look at that?
Actually, for me, I have read the outline and also the proposals, suggestions. My understanding, after about 40 or more than 40 years, high growth since the reform and opening, China now is at a very crucial stage to sort of modify the development from high growth to high quality, including sustainability, high technology, as well as greener and more inclusive development. All of them will actually contribute to the world economy, as well as the economies in the developed societies, rather than a threat to anyone else. If China manages not only growth, but sustainable growth, China manages to this type of development with high quality, inclusiveness, why should we worry about it? How can we say this is a threat? But, so my understanding is a kind of an opportunity for all. If China in the next 5 years or even longer can go along with this new 5-year program.
Mm-hmm. Professor Liu, good to see you again. Welcome back to The Point, my friend. I mean, what's your interpretation, what's your reading of China's 14th five-year plan so far? I mean, to start with, there are a lot of misconceptions in the West saying that, you know, this is a relic of the communist era, the Soviet era planned economy. But China certainly adapted the plans, the five-year plan mechanism, to its national conditions, right?
Right. Yes, under a globalized world, there are fewer countries that handle a five-year plan from the central government. But that's why China is being accused or misunderstood as, you know, still copying the Russian planning economy, which has failed. But as a matter of fact, if we see that the Renaissance was really holding the name of rejuvenating the Greek type of management and philosophy, governance, etc., but the Renaissance took a very different path, very different version. So the same story goes to China's five-year plan. So it is no longer mandatory, as we do see that over the past 4 decades, the market economy has really boomed, which served not only the Chinese people's welfare, but contribute a great deal to the world economy. So now the plan itself, in appearance, it is still something that is really authoritative, but it is there to point a direction and unfold a blueprint. So on the implementation level, it is really respect the global needs and support the global supply chain and strengthen the role of China's contributing factors. So the fact that China is now also accused of more inward looking, it is no longer an economy that can, for itself, can afford autarky, but rather to continue to work with the rest of the world. So yes, there is a certain element that China is being more conservative or self-defensive, but there's a good reason to it. If I'm constantly threatened that the restaurant will not serve me, I have to, buy my own cooking utensils and learn the, how to cook my own recipes to survive. So the response to that is that China goes for innovation, more self-reliance on some of the cutting-edge technologies, is really a response to the constant coercion that is produced, particularly headed by the United States.
Right. Professor Su in Hong Kong, let me go to you. I mean, what's your reading of the 14th five-year plan proposal? We do not know the specific text so far. We won't until next March when China's parliament meets. What's your reading so far, and what do you think will be the significance of this document to not just China, but the rest of the world? Professor Su, okay, we understand that we're still trying to get you back with us. Professor Huang, why don't you take it over? What do you think?
Sorry, can you hear me?
Professor Su, I guess we can hear you. Did you hear our questions?
Yes, I did. But
ahead.
I can't see my video. There's a problem with the video, it seems. I cannot. I can't start video at my end. I think it's stopped by the host.
Yeah, go
So
ahead,
it's
Professor
some
Suthu.
problem.
We're talking about the 14th five-year plan and your understanding
I
of
know.
it.
Yes, what I was going to say is the context is very important because it has been introduced at a time when there is actually a significant geopolitical shift. So if you think, for example, of what happened in 2008-9 when there was a major economic crisis, that led to a new kind of reconfiguration of international relations. You had BRICS, for instance, which came up after 2009. Similarly, today, 2020 is a very important year. Future historians would say this was actually a marker for a different phase of globalization. Some people are even arguing it's a phase of deglobalization. So the 5-year plan has to be seen within that context. And the media you quoted, their specialized financial media, and what they were saying is something you would see in most Western mainstream media, not just in specialist media. And that comes from a certain maybe we call it new Cold War, or that's still not an official phrase, but there is a strong US-China Cold War going on for at least 18 months. And the plan has to be seen within that context. And certain areas, particularly 5G, is one of the battlefields where this is taking place quite robustly. And by the way, it's not just US and China, they are the major players, but there are other players who are concerned about this shift. And I think that's what I would argue. So this is really part of a bigger geopolitical change, and one has to see within that. Otherwise, 5-year plans have been going on this is the 14th one, and didn't really make headlines. It's the timing which makes it interesting.
Professor Liu, China says it wants to pursue a path of dual circulation given the uncertainties of trade and geopolitical frictions. But with, most probably a new administration in the U.S. arising on the horizon, do you expect the trade tensions between China and the U.S. to ease somewhat? And do you expect that to happen fast?
Well, if Joe Biden does sit in the White House, we do see there is a kind of relaxation of the tension in terms of the trade, because he's known to have the tendency to embrace more of a liberal internationalism, and also that he proposes to rejoin the TPP and reactivate the membership within the climate change treaty, etc. And also that the new administration will realize that it is really the U.S. economy, it is really the U.S. consumers and even workers that are being hurt with all the trade war going on by eradicating high tariff barriers against made in China. So I think anyone with the right sense will realize that, and also the fact has proven that over the past 4 years. But having said that, the type of unwelcoming attitude towards China from the both sides of the aisles are still there, and there are also hawkish groups who hijacked the U.S. politics. So therefore, we do not really see a substantial improvement, but in terms of technicality, in terms of communication and in negotiation style, there can be subtle changes, but China will have to be prepared. And also, I think part of the notion of the new 5-year plan is factoring in the response to possible challenges from the United States as a contingency consideration.
Well, Professor Huang, in this proposal to China's 14th five-year plan, China says very clearly that it wants to open itself up further to the rest of the world. More sectors will be open, more market access. At least that's the promise. where is the future of globalization and open trade and free trade if there were to be a new administration in the U.S.? Do you think the deglobalization trend will somewhat ease and China will emerge a leader working on multilateralism?
Well, I do think there are problems, difficulties, and new challenges, and uncertainties since and because of partly the globalization. But the results or solutions and possible sort of ways out is rather not on the so-called decoupling or either sort of new isolation, either to China, against China, or someone else, but rather to seriously to see how those challenges are actually common to all of us, and how by sort of new collaboration and cooperations and people's economies, as well as different countries.
Right. You know what? I think first of all, hold on right there. I think we have a comment from our users, from our social media viewers. If I can ask my colleagues to play that feedback. Okay, this friend, TP0025 on YouTube, I guess, said U.S. has no confidence in coming out ahead if China and the U.S. seek to develop their own economies peacefully. That is interesting. Professor Suthu, where is the future of U.S.-China economic engagement or perhaps disengagement, looking ahead, especially if there is a Biden administration?
As my fellow panelists said, there would be difference of tone and tenor maybe, but fundamentally, I don't think there'll be a huge difference, because it's a question of China trying to challenge the privileged situation that the US has enjoyed for at least 50 years, especially in high-tech sector. So if you think about 5G, for instance, there are more 5G relay stations in China than the rest of the world combined. If you look at the patents for 5G related technology in the World Intellectual property organization, and you'll see China is far ahead of everybody else. Only recently they launched a 6G satellite. So, if you're sitting in Washington or Brussels, you're worried. Because it's not just about telephones, it's about IoT, it's about Internet of Things, it is industrial IoT. So it is, it's a different league. And it's also, there will be these tensions, and that's perfectly understandable. But the relationship between these two countries, the two most important economies, is so multi-layered, is so deeply entrenched. It's been there for at least 40 years. It can't be an easy divorce, even if they talk about decoupling. So it will be, and also, we've seen until recently in the US election, China was the story. Chinese intervention in X, Y, Z, everything. It's like, if you remember 2016, it was Russia. So that's also something one has to take into account. There's an electoral rhetoric, and these things work very well for certain candidates. But also at the same time, parallel to this, for example, tomorrow, it's been reported that RCEP, the Regional Cooperation Organization, Regional Cooperation Economic Partnership, which connects ASEAN with China, Japan, South Korea, Australia, and New Zealand, are going to sign a deal. Now, if that happens, that is phenomenally significant. I'm not sure that will happen as smoothly given the tensions between Australia and China, Japan and China, this whole Indo-Pacific argument, the South China Sea issues. So there are geopolitical constraints, but parallel to that, there is this economic activity taking shape, which is tangibly very significant. And I think that also has a reflection on what's happening to BRI projects, given the economic, the outcome of COVID-19 in many countries which were involved in BRI. So China has to think of alternative arrangements, and I think RCEP is a very important kind of counter to that, because it involves ASEAN, which is the largest trading partner for China, and it involves rest of countries in Asia. So there are those. So and US is remarkably absent from that. So it's an interesting kind of parallel, economic cooperation happening with a very Asia Pacific focus, and that I think is interesting. So there might be different versions of globalization, but this US-China relationship is not going to end anytime soon, because, as I said before, it is so multi-layered, it's entrenched at so many levels. And the change of government certainly will ease those tensions. But fundamentally, the problems are not over.
Yeah, let me go to our guest in Hong Kong. Chinese Institute from Chinese Institute of Hong Kong. Professor Huang, a final word from you. What's your reading from the 14th Five-Year Plan? What does the plan really tell you and the world, perhaps, about the future direction of China?
I think everyone should be serious about this new 5-year. Actually, as a matter of fact, since 2005, the term wording has been changed from 5-year plan to 5-year program. Anyhow, everyone should be serious about this new 5-year program. Not only in terms of the contents in there, which actually officially will be ready in the next March during the Congress. What we have seen now is the outlook yet. Second, everyone should also be more serious about how China will actually do in the coming 5 years and 10 years. And thirdly, as our panelists said, China and the world, now Chinese economy as well as China as a whole is already essentially part of the world. So either deglobalization, decoupling is not the way. And also people should be happy and in a very constructive manner to see how China can manage this kind of high quality, more sustainable, more inclusive, greener development.
Yeah, quality over quantity. That is at least the plan. I want to thank all of you, Huang Ping from China Institute of Hong Kong, Professor Liu Baocheng from University of International Business and Economics, and Professor Dayake Thusu from the Hong Kong Baptist University. Thank you all so much for taking time off to join us today. Thank you. And that will do it for this edition of Headline Buster, brought to you by The Point. On behalf of myself and the whole team, thank you again for joining us. I hope to see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well done. Great job.
Hey, Li Jing, good to see you. Hello, let's see.
Comes time.
Time to read our viewers' comments. Okay, it's real. Let's see. What do we have here? Tahira Noor said, have a nice day. Oh, have a nice day back to you. Happy Friday. Imran Yusuf, I think in reply to another user, said good morning. Okay, any comment on our show actually? Did you guys watch it actually? Or did you just like muted our sound and just look at the pictures? I don't see any comment on the what we talked about today so far. People are friendly, they're cordial. Okay, Cadillac Deville said we need both countries to get together and make a peace with each other. Indeed. I mean, to be honest with you, I hate racism and ultra nationalistic rhetoric with all my heart. And we need to come together one way or the other. There are national interests. Make no mistake about it. But it's really about how you go about defending it. Okay. Shivansh Pandri said China, number one. All right. Not yet. I mean, it also depends on how you look at it. I mean, if you look at GDP per capita, China is still a middle-income country.
Okay, we have other friends. Mayak Raj says hi. Hi to you back. Nalanka Lamini, good morning to you over there. I don't know what this language is. Lots of people are sharing their comments. Keep them coming. Hello, sir. Hi. Hello back to you. Uma Man said, peace, lover. We appreciate your comments. Keep them coming. Every Friday, Headline Buster, is more than welcoming your comments and questions. You're part of this. You're pretty much part of this program.
Yeah.
So.
And I think that no matter what other countries said, China should focus our resources on developing our own economy. So that is what we should do.
Yeah, I think it's important to to be able to present what you did to others, even on a personal level. But I think it's much more important to be able to work in a quiet room and get things done and deliver. Thank you, guys. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I need to go catch my lunch. So will my team over there, working diligently. If you can pan to my team, it's a diverse team. I love this team. Very young, mostly millennials, younger than myself. We have folks from really around the world working on this project. Thank you all so very much, guys. Love you guys.
All right, so see you next time.
See you next time. See you. Bye.
Bye.
Take care.